Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're starting a new Masechet. Masechet Yoma. This is Bet Amud Aleph, 2A1. Okay, remember that Masechet Yoma speaks about whether it's all the different services in the Bet HaMikdash, especially, with the concept of the services of Yom Kippur, and that's what we're going to be starting right now. It says the first Mishnah in Yoma, Shivat Yamin Kolem Yom Kippurim, 7 days before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol Mi Beto, they're going to separate the Kohen Gadol from his house, Lishkat Parhedrim, to the Lishkat Parhedrim. Okay? Now, this is like a special chamber in the Bet HaMikdash. If you look in the art scroll, the Lishkat Parhedrim is number 24, which is right here. I don't know if you could see properly. Lishkat Parhedrim. So that's where the Kohen Gadol stays during the 7 days prior, right, number 24. That's where he stays for the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur. And they also prepare for him another Kohen as a substitute, Shema Yerabo Psul, which means that they always have a backup. It's never good to only have one, you should always have a backup, no matter what. Okay? Fine. Rabbi Yehuda says, not only a backup, you get him a second wife also. Right? A backup wife. Right? You always have to be ready. Yeah? So they have to have a second wife also. They're going to pray to him. Why? Shema tamut ishto, maybe his wife is going to die. Shneimar, and it says in the pasuk, v'chiper ba'adova beto, that he has to atone for himself and his family. Beto zo ishto, a person's house is his wife. So since a person's house is his wife, so therefore if the wife dies, now he can't be mechaper ba'adova beto, there's no beto. So for he has to have another wife also. Why?
Because how can he lose his wife and go?
So the Gemara now though brings down that after Rabbi Yehuda says that you would also separate another wife, Amrulo, they said in Ken and Levarsov, what? There's no matter why. Because then we should also prepare a wife for the second wife as well. Meaning that maybe the second wife is also going to die. And maybe the third wife, you understand? Like, it's endless. So says the Gemara, Tnan Hatam, we learned over there in a Mishnah, Ya Shivat Yamin Kodem Srefat Para, 7 days before the burning of the Paraduma, Hayum Afrishim Kohen Asorefet Para Mi Beto, they would separate also the Kohen that he's burning the Para, right, from his house, La Lishka Shel Pnei Bira, to the Lishka, which is on top of the Bira. The Gemara is going to say exactly where is this. So here, there was a Kohen that he would burn the Paraduma. So this Kohen that would burn the Paraduma, he also was separated from his house 7 days beforehand. Okay? Tzafona Mizrach, this Bira was in the northeastern part of the courtyard of the Bet HaMikdash. Okay? And then it says, V'lishkat Bet HaEven hayta nikret. It was called Lishkat Bet HaEven. Yeah? So if you look, it's the northeast, so it's number 22. 24 was the Kohen Gadol for Yom Kippur, 7 days before Kippur. The 22, which is over here, 22, that was the Kohen that's burning the Paraduma. So the Kohen that's burning the Paraduma 7 days beforehand, they would separate him into that place. Why was it called Bet HaEven, Lishka Bet HaEven, the chamber of Bet HaEven of the stones? Because everything, the utensils, is all made out of, whether it's stone, earthenware, dang, all the, my time, what's the reasoning? Given the Tvul Yom Kasher Bepara, because since a Tvul Yom is valid, right, in order to do the services of the Paraduma. Remember, Tvul Yom means that a person was Tameh, he goes to the mikveh, and then he comes out. He has to wait usually until head of Shemesh, until the sun comes down. That's called the Tvul Yom. So it says the Tzambas, we learned in the Mishnah, Metamima you a Kohen Atzoref et Parah. They would come and they would make him Tameh when he used to burn the Paraduma. But they would make him immerse in a mikveh. In order to get rid of the view of the tzedakим were the Sadducees. They would say that it would be done with people that bechavana are marveh shemesh, right? Which means that they became tameh. Okay, so therefore, since the Tvul Yom is eligible to do the paraduma, okay, so therefore they instituted these things that they are not mekabel tumah. In order that they shouldn't treat the paraduma lightly. Because if not, people are going to become tameh. They're going to say, big deal. I go to the mikveh, now I'm allowed still to do it. No, be very careful. Don't become tameh. Okay? Why is it that this chamber was in the northeast? So says the Gemara, given that the chatati, since it's a chatat, because the paraduma is called efer paraduma, is efer chatat. It's called a sin offering. Okay, the paraduma. So since it's called a sin offering, chatat always needed the north. Chatat unat tzafon. It has to be in the Pnei Moed. It has to be in the northeast. So everyone knows that it's a reminder. Okay, that he has to do it, which is called a chatat. Okay, fine. My bira, why? What does it mean it's like a tower? A bira, what does it mean it's like a tower? So it says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, there was a place in the Temple Mount which was called Bira. The Shaki says, no. The entire Bet HaMikdash was called the Bira. But it says in the Pasuk, the Bira that I've prepared. So because of that, there's a machloket, whether it's a certain place in Arabayit or the Arabayit itself, and that's why it was called a place in Bira. How do we know this? So it says the Gemara, it says Amar Kat says in the Pasuk, Kasher asa bayom hazeh, tziva Hashem la'asot lechaper alechem. Just like he did in this day, so too Hashem commanded to do to atone for you. La'asot elu ma'aseh para. To do is the work of the paraduma. Lechaper, to atone, is ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. So that's how we know that we have to prepare the Kohen Gadol, whether it's for the Yom Kippur or for the paraduma, from the same pasuk. Okay, so bishama kule krabe kapara lo mitukam. It's good that I understand that the entire pasuk is not talking about, right, the kapara, in the paraduma. Lechaper it's written as a kapara. The paraduma was not for a kapara, so we know that for sure that this pasuk was only talking about the paraduma. Because the second that it uses the terminology lechaper, the paraduma is not to atone; it's to purify. It's not to atone, right? There's a big difference. So he says, maybe the entire pasuk is talking about Kippur, and it's not talking about paraduma at all. So says the Gemara, Amre, they said, Yalif tziva tziva, they learn Gzera Sheva tziva tziva. Chtiva, it's written, tziva Hashem la'asot, that he commanded them to do, and Chtivatam, it's written, Zochukat Torah, tziva Hashem nemon. Right there, it's paraduma. So it's just like over there, it's talking about the paraduma when it said tziva Hashem. So to here, it's talking about the paraduma. Umakam prisha, just like over here, we're talking about for the inauguration, you have to separate. So to here, they're talking about the separations. Bet amubet, to be. Okay? So ask the Gemara, Ve'ema tzivat tzivad Yom Kippurim. Why don't we just say it's tzivat tzivad Yom Kippurim? Tichtiva ya'as kasher tziva Hashem Moshe. There it's also written the word tziva. So therefore, just like by Kippur it's written tziva, so to here it's written tziva, and therefore it's talking about Kippur, the entire thing. So answers the Gemara, Danin tziva de lifnei asiyah mitzvah de lifnei asiyah, and danin tziva de lachar asiyah mitzvah de lifnei asiyah. Which means like this, there, the tziva was before. So since the tziva was before, we made a gzera shava before and before, meaning when it says tziva, the tziva, was it before the action was done or after the action was done? So it's much better to do a gzera shava when they're both in the same terminology, same context of before. So we're not going to judge a before and after. Okay, so by Kippur, it was already after. Kasher tziva Hashem Moshe, he did just like Hashem commanded. But that's after the fact. It's not before. So because of that, we don't do the gzera shava. So ask the Gemara, Ve'ima tziva de korbanot dichtiv b'yom tzavatot ben Yisrael. Maybe it's a tziva by the korbanot. Because it's also written on the day that they commanded ben Yisrael, and there's written about korbanot. So says the Gemara, danin tziva mitziva, and danin tzavoto mitziva. We also want to use the same terminology exactly, not from a different type of a verbiage of the same word. Tziva and tzavoto are two different things. Okay? Fine. Right? Umay nafkamina. So what's the difference? What difference does it make? Why should a little variation between tzavato and tziva change everything? It says, V'atana deveh Rabbi Yishmael, right? Why bright the Torah in the Karam Yishmael? V'shava kohen uva kohen. What does it mean? V'shava, you will return and come back. Zo yeshiva, which means it's the same thing. Meaning even the word shiva, right? Right, returning and coming, right, will be the same thing. So the Gemara answers, Hanemile, one of these words, when there's no, right, when there's no identical word. But when you have an identical word first, so then we actually do learn, right? We do learn, right, both of them together. Okay, lechaper. When it says the word lechaper, elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. This refers to the service of the Yom Kippur. So says the Gemara, ve'ima kapara de korbanot. But maybe we're going to say it's the atonement by other sacrifices. So says the Gemara, miyadinan he kohen mitrame tebaile prisha. Well, do we know which kohen will happen, right, to serve on any given day that they need, that we require, right, prisha to separate beforehand? Amri, so they said, alamalo, why not? Nibaile prisha lechule mishamenet betav. We need the separating for the entire betav then, which means why don't we just say that you're going to have to separate the entire betav, not only just him, okay? But if you're talking about the korbanot, all the kohanim bring the korbanot. It's just this one kohen. The service of Yom Kippur is only the kohen gadol. The one that's burning the paraduma, it's only one kohen. right? But if you're going to tell me it's on the korbanot, well, you're going to take all the kohanim of the bet av and you're going to start separating them from their houses a week before. So says the Gemara, danin davar shekavu lo zman, davar shekavu lo zman, le'apuk korbanot dechol yom ha'itin. He says, no, we're going to make something which is a fixed time. The Yom Kippur Avodah was fixed. So that we're going to learn from the fixed time, which is the 8th day, by Yom HaShmini, where we just read in last week's parasha, right? On the 8th day of the inauguration, which was Vahi Yom HaShmini, right? The parashat Shmini. The Apuke Korbanot, which is going to come to exclude Korbanot, the Chol Yom HaItniu, was brought every single day. The Korban is brought every single day, not only just that day. So says the Gemara, Ve'ima Regalim. Why don't we just say it's Shalosh Regalim, right? So says the Gemara, Danin Davar Shnoig Pam Achad B'Shana, Davar Noeg Pam Achad B'Shana, Lapuke Regalim, Delav Pam Achad B'Shana Ninu. Says, no, we're learning it something to an effect of one time of a year from something that is also an effect one time of a year to exclude the chagim that is not once a year, right? This is once a year, right? The inauguration was once upon a time, right? The Kippur was once a year. Here, there's Shalosh Regalim. So says Imran, okay, fine. Ve'ema, right, regel echad. Why don't we just say it's one chag? If you're going to tell me, right, that we don't know which one, if it's going to be with its Pesach, because the Torah started with Pesach. Maybe it's Sukkot, because there's more mitzvot, right? There's more commands on Sukkot. So says the Gemara, "Eladanim prishat shiva liyom echad mi prishat shiva liyom echad, ve'endanim prishat shiva leshiva mi prishat shiva liyom echad." Kippur is one day, right? The burning of the paraduma is one day. The inauguration was one day. So there, I always compare everything to the same. But the regel is 7 days, right? You understand? Sukkot is 7 days. Shmini Atzeret is another chag, but Pesach is 7 days. So I'm going to learn separation of 7 days required for one day, and I'm not going to learn 7 days required for 7 days. You understand? It's much easier to compare likes with likes, apples with apples. Here you're separating him 7 days before for one day of service, right? Whether it's on the inauguration of the Mishkan, whether it's for the Kippur, whether it's for the Paraduma, but not for the Regel. The regel is separating 7 days for 7 days. It's not the same. Okay? So says the Gemara, Shmini Atzeret. Maybe you're separating 7 days for Shmini Atzeret. Because then it's the same thing. You're separating 7 days for one day. 7 days prior to Shmini Atzeret for one day. So that's the same thing like Kippur. So answers the Gemara, Danin davar she'en kedusha lefanav, midavar she'en kedusha lefanav, and danin davar she'en kedusha lefanav, davar she'en kedusha lefanav. Kippur has no kedusha before. Meaning 7 days before Kippur, there's no kedusha. 7 days before burning the paraduma, there's no kedusha. 7 days before Shmini, it's Shmini Atzeret, it's Sukkot, there is kedusha. So I'm not going to compare both cases again. Okay? So says the Gemara, v'lav kal v'chomer, shouldn't it be a kal v'chomer? Hashta davar she'en kedusha lefanav by prisha. If you do not have any kedusha before it, and you still need to separate, davar she'esh kedusha kosher. So if it does have kedusha, shouldn't it be a kosher that you should separate as well? So answers the Gemara, Masechet says no. Hazeh ketiv. What does it mean hazeh? Hazeh, like this. Meaning like on this day is like this. Ravashi says, he says, does it mean, can it actually be that the main body of the festival does not require separation, but something which is subordinate, meaning Sukkot is the main chag. Shmini Atzeret is the second chag. You're going to tell me that the Ikar, which is Sukkot, does not need separation, and Shmini Atzeret, which is like the subordinate, does need the separation? It doesn't make sense. So says the Gemara, and even according to Mandama, that Shmini Atzeret is a regel b'fnei atzmo, it's its own chag. Hanamina, one of these words, linyan, pazar kashav, that's only to do with Gimel Amud Aleph, that's only to do with pazar kashav, is like a mnemonic to do with 6 different laws. So if you look in the footnote, it tells you the pazar, the pay is for pais, the lottery. Meaning during each of the 7 days of Sukkot, all 24 mishmarot would follow a rotation system to decide which mishra would be privileged to do the sacrifices of the entire day. Remember, who does the service of the Bet HaMikdash? There was 24 countings, 24 watches, okay? Which means that every single watch, there was a different Bet Av in the same watch. So for example, let's say you had here 24 different families of Kohanim, okay? So therefore, 1 week a year, right, they would do it. Now there's 52 weeks, so they would do it a second time. So they would do it twice. So it comes out to 48 weeks, okay? So now what happens is you have 48 weeks. Twice a year, they would do a full week. Now, even in that week itself, every day of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, was one mishmar, except for Shabbat. Shabbat was all of them together. Okay, that's what we already learned. Now here, we're learning another thing as well. On Sukkot, during each of the 7 days of the Sukkot, all 24 would do a rotation system to decide who's going to be doing the korbanot of that day. Okay? Zayin of Pazar was Zman. Zman is Shmini Atzeret. They say Shechianu. That's what we do until today. We say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeret. Resh is Regel. Shmini Atzeret is not called Sukkot. In Yalev Yavo, it's called Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Chag Atzeret. It's a different Chag. Okay? Kuf is Korbanot. It's got a different Korban. The Korban of Shmini Atzeret is different than the one on Sukkot. Shin is the Shiv. The song is also sung differently. It's not the same song. It's Lam Natzeach Al Sheminit, which is chapter 12, and not the one of regular Sukkot, which is I think 42, 43. Bet is Beracha, the blessing. On Shmini Atzeret, people would bless the king, right? When they would come and they would make, like on the 8th day and everything, they would come and they would make a special Beracha to the king. So to do with that, it's a separate Chag. But to do with Tashlumin, it's always Tashlumin on the first day, right? Which to do with the complete, meaning that if a person did not bring the sacrifice the first day, they could still bring it the other days, right? Even in Shmini Atzeret. Because we already learned in the Mishnah, if somebody did not offer a sacrifice on the first day of Sukkot, you could do it even until the last day as well, even on the day of Shemini Atzeret. So if you can't say that Shemini Atzeret is like subordinate to Sukkot, right? Because then it would, it's still part of it. So okay, Bezat Hashem, we continue tomorrow, Bezat Hashem.